All right, Peter Badel, a massive announcement today. Keith Thurman, Brock Jarvis. Your thoughts on this one first off?
Totally blindsided by Jay. I think it's a fantastic fight for Australian boxing. I mean, we love to see the best international fighters come here. We've seen it over the last 15 years. Roy Jones Jr.'s been out here. McAllister fought against the great Choc Mundine. Antoine Eccles came out here. And, of course, the great Manny Pacquiao in 2017 against Jeff Horn. So we are now Keith Thurman, who is one of the greatest American fighters we've seen in the last 2 decades. And for me, an unbelievable test. This is not a big test for Brock. This is a gargantuan test. And whether he's up to it, I'm not sure, but I admire his courage because this is going to be a super fight.
What do you see as the path forward for these guys? Thurman wins, obviously the Tszyu fight's there. Brock wins, he could take on Nikita or Tim. How do you see that?
Yeah, it's perfectly positioned, and credit to No Limit for the way they've strategised this. I mean, to me, I would think that Thurman beats Brock Jarvis, and then he would look at a Tim Tszyu fight later in the year. That would be the path in my head. But if Brock pulls off the boil over, that could happen, as it can often happen in boxing, then why wouldn't he have a crack at Tim Tszyu or potentially Nikita, who he's called out before? So maybe Nikita becomes a stepping stone, and then Tim Tszyu's the gold later in the year. But look, for Brock Jarvis, I'm just stunned that he would take a fight like this. It's credit to his character, his resilience, his toughness, his belief in himself, because not many fighters with his inexperience or perceived inexperience compared to Thurman would take this fight. So it shows a bit of confidence, and who knows, maybe he's got the tools to get it done.
Any similarities in this fight between this one and Tim Tszyu, Tony Harrison? A lot of similarities there. How do you see that?
Absolute parallels, Jay. I mean, of course, we had the brash Tony Harrison, the big talking, very American, bombastic, loved the entertaining, and the Aussie fans really warmed to him. And I think the Aussie fans will warm to Keith Thurman. He could sell ice to the Eskimos, Keith. And not only that, he's got the ability to back up the talk. And I think that we're going to see, I know some people think Thurman's washed up, past it at age 36, hasn't fought for 1,038 days, but I think Thurman's still got something. And they say form's temporary, class is permanent. Thurman's classy, and I think Brock Jarvis will find that out. He's in for the toughest test of his career.
See Michael Zarafa on this card as well. A few choice words for Tim Tszyu there. Where do you see that potential fight? I know, there's all these articles, the fight's in the making, but you speak to Tim, he says, I'll never fight Michael Zarafa. What's your read on that?
Well, to me, it's the fight that has to happen, Jay, for Australian boxing. I mean, this is a score that needs to be settled. It's 3 or 4 years in the making now. It should have happened in 2021. It didn't for COVID reasons or various other reasons, according to Tim, who believes that Michael chickened out and was scared of him. Look, I don't believe he was. Michael's been in against the best fighters in the world. He's fought against Landy Lara, so there's no reason for him to fear Tim Tszyu. I think, though, it seems like Tim Tszyu perhaps thinks that he's moved past the domestic scene, that he belongs in the international space, which he does in terms of ability. But given the last 2 losses he's had, I think he needs a confidence-boosting win, maybe against a lower-ranked international opponent. And then perhaps if I'm No Limit, I would look to put on Tszyu Zarafa, because for me, that can do 100,000 pay-per-views.
What about Nikita Tszyu? Haven't seen him for some time. He had that hand injury. Any word on Nikita Tszyu's return?
I haven't had a lot of word, but there was some talk. I think he was due to be the headline for this March 12 fight, and it hasn't materialised. But I think they may be delaying slightly. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Nikita around April or May, but I think it'll be sooner rather than later. His hand's healing well from what his team says, so I think he'll be ready to go by June.
Now, last time we spoke, we were getting excited about a potential Japanese trip for Sam Goodman.
It's off.
Versus Inoue. Devastating news for Sammy. Your thoughts and reaction on that?
Well, I could say this, Jay. I mean, we were disappointed. I can only imagine that would be magnified 50 times for Sam Goodman. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. I mean, he's put his life, he's put his heart and soul into this moment. It was going to be his moment to fight the great Inoue. And even if he didn't beat Inoue, which I know it was probably at long odds to do, but in boxing anything can happen, he still was getting a massive payday, $1 million payday, which could set him up for life to a degree. So I just think it's terrible for Sam Goodman. Look, from what I've heard, the plastic surgery, the operation went well. The cut will heal in time. It just didn't have enough time this time, but there was some talk that it was career-threatening. That's not the case, which is great. So we will see Sam Goodman back in the ring again, which is fantastic for Australian boxing. And I really hope, look, he might not fight Inoue again, because Inoue probably vacates eventually and goes up. But that in a way that can be a rainbow for Sam, because without in a way in the division, I think Sam Goodman becomes a world champion.
Last one, Australian boxing this year. We saw a big show from Riyadh season, Matchroom, Tasman the other week. No Limit come back with a massive announcement today. Boxing's healthy in Australia. How do you read the landscape this year?
It'll get bigger and better, Jay. I really believe that, and I think diversity is great in any sphere. And look, to me, No Limit are the market leaders. They have been for some time in Australian boxing. I don't think anyone will ever match what they've done. I think they've set standards that may never be beaten. They'll want to beat their own standards and get better, as we've seen here with this prelude with Thurman against Brock. There'll be bigger fights down the track this year that I'm sure they're planning, No Limit. I'm sure Tszyu and Thurman comes into the equation, and then bigger fights if Tim wins in the next few months. But I like the fact that Ace Boxing is now involved, putting on some cards with No Limit. They're putting on some fights, which is fantastic. I think that helps the depth and the breadth of fighters and the quality of fights we see. So, and I think Tasman did a wonderful job with Nyika and Opatai. That was a wonderful event. You were there, Jay, and I think in total, the more promoters we have putting on quality cards, the winner is Australian boxing, and that's what we want to see.
Nice one. Appreciate it, Pete.
Thanks, Macca.